A city surrounded by 80,000 soldiers, an ancient wall built 1,100 years ago, and only 7,000 infantrymen to defend it. How could Constantinople last 53 days before complete collapse? Let's go back to April 1453. The Turkish sky was bright, but on the western walls of the city, everything was silent. Byzantine soldiers stood waiting. They knew what was coming. They didn't know this would be the final hours of the Byzantine Empire, a civilization 1,123 years old, about to vanish into history. But this story doesn't start in 1453. It starts with a fatal decision centuries before. Constantinople wasn't fragile. It was resilient. Built by Emperor Constantine in 330 AD, it sat on the Thrace Peninsula, a perfect military position. The west was land. The north, east, and south were sea. Anyone who wanted to conquer it had to execute one of the most difficult assaults in history. And the most miraculous thing was the wall. Called the Theodosian Walls, built from the 5th century. They stood 13 meters tall, 5 meters thick, made of granite stone and cement. Nothing could penetrate them. For 1,000 years, they had never failed. Until 1453. To understand why Constantinople finally fell, you need to understand one thing. The Ottoman sultans weren't mindless invaders. They were calculating strategists. They had besieged this city 3 times before, in 1422, in 1444. Both times, they failed. But in 1453, everything was different. Sultan Mehmed II, at age 21, decided it was time. He didn't just bring an army, he brought technology. Cannons. 70 cannons, some standing 2.5 meters tall. They weighed up to 16 tons. Each cannonball had a diameter like a bowling ball. Rate of fire? Once every 3 hours. Slow, but it only needed to hit once. The Ottomans weren't invaders. They were military engineers. Imagine you're a Byzantine soldier, standing on the wall on the morning of April 6th. You haven't slept. You've heard talking all night. Tens of thousands of Ottoman conversations below. You feel cold under your armor. You're hungry. Then you hear it. A sound like thunder from the earth. The sound of a cannon firing. The stone projectile doesn't fly toward you. It flies straight into the wall. A small crack appears. That's it. Just one crack. But you know that tomorrow there will be another crack. Then another. One at a time. Until the wall isn't a wall anymore. Just rubble. The Ottomans knew this. They didn't need to attack. They just needed to wait. But the Ottomans had a problem. The walls were too large to cover completely. The Byzantines could repair them every night. A small work crew, just 50 people, could patch cracks with clay, wood, anything they could find. So what did Mehmed do? He built a wall of his own. Not really. He built a palisade, a wooden fence, around the entire city, so no one could get in or out. No food could enter. No plea for help could leave. No hope could be sent away. The Byzantines were surrounded, not by an army, but by certain death. Let's talk about food. In a city, you have 3 weeks of supplies, maybe 4 if you eat little. 10 years before, Constantinople was a bustling city of 400,000 people. In 1453, it had 55,000. Most had died or fled. Those who remained? They were too old to escape, too young to leave their families, or too stubborn to quit. Now, imagine you're a mother. You have 2 small children. You don't know when the next meal will come. You hear explosions all day long. You don't know if the wall will hold. You can't sleep. You can't eat. Even if there was food, you couldn't swallow it because of fear. This is psychological warfare. 15 days pass, then 20, then 30. The cannons have fired thousands of times. The wall has collapsed 60 meters, one wide, bleeding wound. On the night of May 28th, Mehmed gives his final order. The entire army, 80,000 men, will attack at dawn. No escape, no negotiation, just victory or death. The Byzantines knew this. They prepared. Not much to prepare. They had just 7,000 soldiers. Each would have to defend 11 meters of wall. The last commander of Constantinople was Constantine XI, Palaiologos. He knew he would die. Everyone knew. But he still ordered his soldiers to stand firm. Morning of May 29th. The sun hadn't risen yet. The Ottoman lions begin slowly. Light infantry, scouts finding weak points. The Byzantines push back. 1 hour passes. 2 hours. The Ottomans never stop. Then, artillery fires a cannon at one position. It doesn't damage the wall, but it knocks down a Byzantine general. He's Giustiniani, Constantine's most trusted commander. He's wounded. Blood flows. He says he needs to leave the wall to get bandaged. A 100-meter gap in the wall opens up. Within minutes, the Ottomans pour through. No one sees Giustiniani leave. Everyone only sees the gap widen. And when everyone retreats, no one stops to block the hole. Constantine XI, age 57, still stands on the wall. He could have escaped. There were still ships in the harbor. But he doesn't. He raises his sword above his head and charges into the Ottoman forces. No one ever finds his body. In 53 days, the Ottomans fired 7,000 cannonballs. They lost 4,000 soldiers. The Byzantines lost everything. But that's not the strangest part. The strangest part was what was destroyed. Not lives, but a civilization. Constantinople was where 6,000 years of ancient Greece, Rome, and Christianity were preserved. The oldest manuscripts, the rarest books, works of art the world had forgotten. When the city fell, part of human history died. But, and this is a strange detail, many Byzantine scholars had evacuated earlier. They brought books, manuscripts. They fled to Italy, to France, everywhere. These documents would become the foundation of the Renaissance. Now let's compare this to other besieged cities in history. Carthage was besieged for 3 years. Troy was besieged for 10 years. But Constantinople? 53 days. Not because it was weak, but because technology, the cannon, had made ancient walls obsolete. This is why historians call 1453 the end of the Middle Ages. Not because everything changed that day, but because for the first time, a new technology proved that old methods no longer worked. The Ottomans didn't just conquer a city. They proved that an entire era was dead. So, back to the original question. How could a city surrounded by 80,000 soldiers, defended by only 7,000 troops, last 53 days? The answer is, it wasn't a system. It was a choice. The Byzantines chose not to flee. They chose to die for their city. That's what lasted 53 days. Not the walls, but the will. But that was also the reason for their downfall. If you're weaker than your enemy, run. Live to fight another day. But the Byzantines didn't. They chose glory over survival. Now I want to hear from you. If you were standing on that wall on the morning of May 29th, would you run or would you stay? Or would you do something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to know about another battle where a small city fought against a giant army, check out our next video on the Siege of Masada, a story that's even stranger. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe